Maybe.
So the topic this week and next week is going to be a couple,
Two-parter. Huh?
yeah, a two-parter.
Because we don't often judge favorably.
That's right. We need extra work on this one. That's
Is
right.
judging favorably the key to Rosh Hashana, the key to life, right? Because yes, and Dove has your side today, so we'll have in mind Moshe ben Yitzchak.
Oh, his
Yes.
father. We went
Yes.
to the funeral.
Yes, we did, Chayiv.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. We decide what world we are living in. We could live in a world surrounded by beautiful people who sometimes do things that are not so beautiful. Or we can live in a world surrounded by people who are cruel and malicious, who sometimes do nice things.
Ooh.
Now, it's the same exact world.
Uh-huh.
It's the same exact world. But either you're looking over your shoulder every moment because this person and that person, or you're basking in goodness around you. It's the same exact world. So really, it's all up to us. How will we have that ayin tov that's mentioned in Pirkei Avot? That good eye, a generous eye. And then we could live in a wonder world. But we have to recognize that we often don't, we never know the whole story. Natalie sent me, I'll just share this with you. It's not exactly on judging favorably, but it's on judging, and then we'll get to judging favorably. This is the story of the Chinese farmer. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all his neighbors came around to commiserate. They said, "We are so sorry to hear your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate." The farmer responded, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back bringing several wild horses with it. In the evening, everybody came back and said, "Oh, isn't that lucky? What a great turn of events. You now have 8 horses." The farmer again said, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to break one of the horses, and while riding, he was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors then said, "Oh dear, that's too bad." And the farmer responded, "Maybe." The next day, the conscription officers came around to conscript people into the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. Again, all the neighbors came around and said, "Isn't that great?" Again, he said, "Maybe." The whole process of nature is an integrated process of immense complexity. And it's really impossible to tell whether anything that happens in it is good or bad, because you will never know what will be the consequence or the misfortune, or you never know what will be the consequence of good fortune. Actually, in our tefillah, we incorporate all of that in one word. We say, God is Gomel Chasadim. God does acts of kindness. Beautiful, stop there. Chasadim Tovim. Good acts of chesed. Why qualify it with a good act of kindness, of chesed? Isn't an act of kindness, chesed, inherently a good act? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe. Okay. Judging others favorably. So before we get to the actual sources, there's a story I've shared before, a true story. Right? The names have been changed to protect the innocent, but it's a true story that happened in a city in Israel, and as Rabbi Pesach Krohn relates it, it was the fine gold home in Ashdod. Okay. Their oldest daughter had become engaged, and they were jubilant. At the same time, they were quite worried because there was virtually no money for the upcoming wedding, and as is the accepted custom amongst many groups in Israel, that part of a wedding cost is the parents chipping in to help buy an apartment for the children. And they were not able to do that. he traveled throughout Israel and the United States to raise money for his daughter's wedding. His neighbors and friends understood the difficult situation, and they also raised money and donated money to help the family. Finally, the night of the wedding arrived. But when the guests who had contributed to the wedding walked into the hotel's largest, most luxurious ballroom, they were quite surprised. The room was decorated opulently. Elegant floral arrangements, 7-piece band, 6-course meal. Was this what they had raised money for? Is this what they had dug deep into their own pockets to pay for? And hadn't the rabbis recently spoken out against ostentatious weddings, encouraging people not to make such lavish affairs because it puts pressure on those who can't afford it to duplicate? And here they had used so much money, money that had been raised, money that had been donated, other people's money, for one night, when that could have been used to help buy an apartment. You know, the custom, I'm interjecting now, the custom in Israel, in the Talmudic times was brilliant. They would make a very nice wedding. They would actually build the wedding house. That's where the money would go. And then they'd have the chuppah there. And then the couple would have that house. That became their place to live. So besides having to clean up after the wedding, right, it was a pretty good deal. Right? So people are feeling all this money could have been spent, was wasted on one night. The people who had been invited left the hall dismayed and displeased. A few days later, Mr. Feingold, the father of the bride, who sensed the resentment that people were feeling, came to speak to the neighborhood rabbi, Rabbi Elia Weiss, and explained exactly what had happened. When I first came to discuss prices and fix a date, the wedding hall owner asked me, Feingold, did you have any Feingold relatives in Germany? I said, yes. My father, the late Leo Feingold, was from Germany. When I said that, he related to the rabbi, the owner's, caterer's eyes filled up with tears. I am alive today only because of your father. He hid my family and I and saved our lives. My whole family owes their lives to your father. And he said, I always wanted to meet his family to pay them back in some small way. But we had lost contact with them after the war. He said to me, whatever you were planning to give, you can give. I'm going to make you a beautiful wedding as payback, as thanks to your late father. We tried to talk him out of it. We said, we're simple people, please. He said, don't you worry. I'll handle this. When we came to the wedding hall that night, we were as shocked as anyone else. I couldn't say anything to anyone because our benefactor had asked that his present remain a secret. But when I saw the reaction of the guests, I went to get his permission to reveal the truth. I now ask you, Rabbi, please let everyone know the truth. The next day, Rabbi Weiss told the story in shul to the congregation. Again, people were suspicious, surprised, this time not at anyone else, but at themselves. They had not known all the facts. They had jumped to conclusions. They had judged. And they were very, very wrong. Okay. Let's see how the Torah discusses this idea. The first source is in Vayikra. It's actually speaking to a judge, it would seem. Lo tasu avel b'mishpat. Do not distort judgment. Lo tisa pnei dal. Do not favor the poor. Don't say, here's a poor person, here's a rich person. Anyhow, the rich person needs to give some tzedakah. I'm going to rule in favor of the poor person, and that way he'll get what he needs in a respectable manner. You can't do that. You will have to help raise the funds for that poor person. But you can't twist justice in order to help a poor person. V'lo tedar pnei gadol. And do not buckle, do not honor a great person. Let's say the wealthy person is wrong. And how can I humiliate him in court by ruling against him? I'll rule in his favor. And then I'll tell him afterwards, really you were wrong and you really need to take care of the money that you owe. But how can I humiliate this important, distinguished person? Right? He might even be a big contributor to the synagogue. You never know. It happens sometimes. And the Torah says, no, you cannot twist, tilt judgment. B'tzedek tishpot amitecha. With righteousness you shall judge your fellow. The Gemara takes this from just beyond the realm of courts and judges and says this is not simply speaking to a judge in a court, but source number 2, the Gemara brings B'tzedek tishpot amitecha havidan et chavercha lekaf zuchut. You shall judge your friend lekaf zuchut in a favorable manner. Now, we often somewhat misinterpret that as to give the benefit of the doubt. Now, once we misinterpret that, we run into a bit of a brick wall. Because there's another teaching from the sages, which is, right, don others lekaf zechut, and God will don you lekaf zechut. Which actually means judge others favorably, and God will judge you favorably. It can't mean give others the benefit of the doubt, and that way God will give you the benefit of the doubt, because God has no doubts. But judging favorably is not necessarily about doubt. Judging favorably is looking at ourselves and looking at the broad array of motivations that we have for anything that we do. Any good thing that we do, there are good motivations for it, and there are some less good motivations for it. And what we're supposed to do is looking at other people's actions also, focus on the positive. Don't focus on the negative. And if we focus on the positive, not on the negative, as we'll see in next week's sources, in regard to Rosh Hashana, there is this great mirror in the sky that reflects the way that we deal with others. That's how the heavens deals with us. So therefore, our sages say, judge others lekaf zuchut, judge others favorably. On that, Rashi says, Havidan et chavercha lekaf zuchut, v'lo b'din bali danim akos medaber. We're not speaking, or only speaking, about judges in a court setting. You see your friend doing something, and you can judge him favorably or not. Right? Don't suspect him of a wrongdoing. Assume that he is innocent. You have, right, view people as being upright, honest, good-hearted, and give them the benefit of the doubt. In the Yesod V'Shoresh Ha'avodah, in source number 3, right, explains that this is almost a subdivision of one of the most famous psukim, verses, directives of the Torah that is often presented as part of the great Judeo-Christian tradition, but it just comes from the Torah, right? That's where it comes from. And that is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. He writes, U'mitzvah asay, source number 3, this positive command shall of b'tzedek tishpon amitecha, of judging with righteousness, hainu, which means ladun chaveru l'zchut, to judge others in a favorable manner, b'chol inyan u'b'chol maaseh sheyaseh chaveru, in all that a friend does, he tluya u'mechuberet l'mitzvah asay shall v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. That is closely connected, actually, tluya dependent, and mechuberet, connected to the mitzvah asay, the positive command of love one's fellow as oneself. Ki davar barurhu. It is a clear matter. V'im sheyadin l'chaveiro l'kav chova afilu pamachat. If you'll judge your friend in a negative manner, shuv lo yuchal l'kayim b'mitzvah asay shat l'reacha kamocha al buri v'shalim mutar. You cannot fully fulfill the mitzvah of loving him because you're going to see that person in this negative light, through this negative lens. Another aspect that I will just add to that, talking in a healthy situation, how does everyone view themselves? I'm a good person. I'm a good guy. I make mistakes. I overstep. I understep at times. But all in all, I'm a good person. That's how we judge ourselves, and then we use that as a means of categorizing the things that we do. That's me. That act of kindness, that's me. Oh, that slip up, that was a momentary slip up. That's not me. But we view ourselves as being good people who sometimes drop the ball. That's how, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, do the same for the other person. The person is late for a meeting. It's not that he doesn't care about your time. It's not that he only cares about himself. It's not that the world revolves only around him or her, right? We've all been late for meetings. What happens? We got stuck in traffic. We miscalculated. We got a little too caught up in what we were doing. Okay. But that's how we view ourselves. That, in the same way, is how we should view others. Now.
Rabbi?
Yes.
It was my understanding that is a much stronger statement is do not do unto others as you would not have others do unto you, because the positive statement, do unto as you would. What if you're a masochist? What if you're self-hating? Where do not do unto others means that's a limit.
Okay, yeah,
this.
Yeah, yes. Ida is mentioning is alluding to the Gemara that the convert who came to Hillel and asked to be taught the entire Torah on one foot, so Hillel paraphrased the love your neighbor as yourself and put it to the negative, right? What's become known as the golden rule, right? What you don't want others to do to you, don't do to others. And in a way that was putting it in more of a practical manner. Loving others, how do I qualify that? But this is a very, very specific, right? Like say where the wheel hits the road sort of explanation. Would you want that done to you? No, don't do it to others. Yes, that is very, very true. Okay, Favorably, Zatzal, points out that it's not simply, it's not just the last step. The last step is, I'm judging that person favorably. But there are things that need to happen before that. And he writes as follows in his classic Alei Shur. Hadan l'kaf suchut. Rotzeh shechaveru yeh zakai. Someone who judges others favorably really hopes, wants, that his friend is guiltless. Umechapes drachim keitzel lavin ma'asav. And he looks for ways of understanding that his actions are considered to be good. In other words, like I started, the world around us. If my given, my starting point is this person's a good person, then I look for things the person does to reinforce my view that this person is a good person. And then I try to take actions that might be somewhat questionable, and I'm able to fit them into that structure that I have developed. Kol kach yesh listakel ba'ayin tova al kol adam. As I mentioned before, that ayin tov. To this degree, a person must look with this ayin tov, with this good eye, to all people. U'leratzo dafke l'rot kol ma'asav novim mimakor tov. And to see that what they are doing is coming from a good place. Right? Those are very important operative words. It was coming from a good place. Does it always come out the way? Does it always come out in such a way? No. Does everything that we do always come out in this beautiful way? No. But we look at ourselves, we say, but I meant well. It was coming from a good place. That's how we need to look at others also. It was coming from a good place. We should look for another person's ma'alot, positive qualities. Hepech miderech ha'olam, she'at ha'megraot, ro'im, tekef, u'me'ama'alot, mit'almim. Right? Whereas the way of the world, unfortunately, is to immediately focus on others' shortcomings and not on their positive qualities. We do that with Hashem all the time. I always like to point out. Someone twists their ankle and they're, right? So the first thought is, God, why me? Right? Why me? Now, when they woke up the previous morning and they jumped out of bed onto two healthy ankles, I was able to support them and take them through the day without them giving it any thought. Did they say, God, why me? What did I do to deserve this incredible machine you've given me? So why me is when things don't go the way we like. When things go perfectly, that's expected. That's a given.
We say thank you, though. We do.
Okay. But it's taking it a step further, right? We're not, right? It's not the perfunctory, thank you, God, but to really feel, wow, this is a gift, right? I mentioned in this class, another class, just recently about Rabbi Schwab. We'll soon hear another story about Rabbi Schwab, right? That when he was older in the hospital in a very, very diminished state, and yet he still had this beautiful glow and smile about him. So I think his grandchildren came to visit him and said, Zeta, Upa, whatever it was that they called him, how do you still maintain this radiance? And he said, let's say someone was giving you $1 million a day. Every day of your life, this person's giving you $1 million. And then after 70, 75, 80 years, he starts to give you 500,000, 250,000, 100,000. So do you get angry and say, why aren't you giving me $1 million? Or are you appreciative of the $1 million you got every day? Or you're appreciative of what you're getting every day now? That's how he viewed it. So Favorably says, so too, we tend, when it comes to other people, we tend to focus on their mishaps, on their deficiencies, right? On what's lacking, their shortcomings. And the idea is to focus on their positive. Yes.
Every morning when I say my morning prayers, there's a section that I find I say, but I don't like because it talks about a bad neighbor, distancing yourself from a bad neighbor, distancing yourself from bad people, be sure, that kind of thing. I had an experience. I'm not going to go into it. I felt I did everything good, and I felt this person was dishonest in every way. I went on Shabbos to somebody I trust, and I didn't give any names, and I just wanted an opinion. And it turns out that this woman had the same experience with the same person in the same way. And it was interesting. So now I'm working on trying to forgive that person or forgive me, but this person has developed dishonesty. It's a doctor. He's trying to sell you things, trying to tell you all the things he could do. He never did any of the things. He told me how he's going to help me walking. He's going to, if I buy his supplements, if I do this, if I do that. And this lady who I trust, and if I told you your name, you would trust her too. So what I'm saying is, I really believe it's all very well and good, and I try to see the good in people. But there are people who have developed a lot of dishonesty in their life.
So, well, we'll see the Rambam in a moment. Okay? In other words, you don't need to be naive. And you certainly don't need to set yourself up for pain, suffering, and to be taken advantage of. Right? Even in a situation like that where you're convinced, right? So, who knows? Look, maybe, who knows what this person's upbringing was? Who knows what this person's personal situation is now? Who knows what this person's financial situation is now? That's, it's interesting. We always think that, I love a story that I heard from a fellow named Rosenstock, who runs the Tomchei Shabbos in Muncie. Tomchei Shabbos delivers thousands of packages every Friday to people who need for Shabbos. And it's done with the most sensitivity, the most discretion. Thursday night, people go and volunteer to start packing the boxes and getting the boxes ready, and other volunteers then come and they have their routes and they drop off the boxes. And he has the responsibility of raising funds. Right? You're talking about millions of dollars in this of the budget. And he went to a very wealthy person in the community, well-known, very wealthy person in the community, to ask for a donation. And the person said, tell me, I'm willing to give you a donation of $10,000. Nice donation. If you'll give me 10 names of people you delivered to. And he said, I'm sorry, but our policy is ironclad. Right? We maintain the privacy of our recipients. I'll give you $25,000. 3 names, that's all I'm asking for. I want to know this is really happening. I'm very sorry. As much as we can use the $25,000, as many families as that could cover, I'm so sorry. We do not reveal the names. I'll give you $50,000. 1 name is all I'm asking. I'm so sorry. I can't. He looked at him and started to cry and said, if that's the case, please put my name on the list. I am overextended. My businesses have failed. The debts are mounting. I'm trying to get myself out of this big house, which has turned into a trap for me. And I can't afford food for my family on Shabbos. we'll see the next source, the Rambam, in a minute. We're not supposed to look at a person and say this person is a tzaddik if this person has ripped us off, right? We're certainly not supposed to keep extending money in those situations. However, what we could do is say, what we can say is, who knows what their situation truly is? If I was in their situation, who knows how I would react? And as we'll soon see a source, I'm not going to judge a person until I've, the obviously say until you've stood in his shoes, reached his place, tagila makomo, right? The English saying is adapted until you've walked a mile, right? Don't judge a person until you've walked a mile in his shoes. A comedian once said, at that point you have his shoes, you're a mile away, say whatever you want. But that's not really the
Sounds like
idea.
George Carlin.
Yes, though.
So 2 points. One is the exalted in this world and the lowly in this world will be reversed in Olam Haba.
Okay.
That's number one. And number two, Re'eh, see how Moshe was saying it, wasn't look out into the externals, look inside.
Okay, nice, Dov. Nice. So, there are laws of Lashon Hara, right? And we can't accept something as true, but we need to be concerned that it might be true. The fast that we do the day after Rosh Hashana, Tzom Gedalia. Gedalia was a very righteous person who was killed, and he was warned that this Yishmael ben Netanyah is coming to kill him, and he didn't accept the Lashon Hara, and Yishmael came and killed him. What should he have done? He couldn't accept it as truth and have him, bumped off on his way there, but he could have said hello from a distance, not given him a hug, perhaps had him go through a biblical metal detector of sorts, right? Have some strong guys next to him and say, "Hi there, nice to see you. I've got a very bad cough. You'll pardon me if I don't give you a hug." Whatever it is, right? He should have taken those. But we'll see Rambam. Let's see Rambam right now. Source number 5. Okay, the Rambam on Pirkei Avot says, "Aval im yeh adam noda shehu tzadik mufursam b'pulot hatavot." If this person is known to be a tzaddik, known for doing good deeds, you seem to do something that seems to be inexplicable, and it's only possible to view it in a positive way with a lot of creativity, right? Then it is proper to view it in a good manner. Since there's a possibility of seeing it in a good way, that's what you must do. Now, so 1 second, that just limited it tremendously, right? So it's only a real tzaddik that you have to do that. But regular folks, right, not so much. So, interesting. There's a famous story in the Gemara that Rabbi Akiva, before he was Rabbi Akiva, he was just Akiva. He worked for 3 years for Elazar ben Horkanus. On Erev Yom Kippur, right before Yom Kippur, he wanted to travel home to bring his wages to his wife and children, and he asked for payment. Elazar said he had no money to give, but he saw that he did have money. Right? And the Gemara goes through more. He asked take some animals, to take some fleece, to take some bedding, to take some produce, and always, he kept being turned down. Akiva went home empty-handed. Later, he paid the full wages. And he said to him, "Did you suspect me when I refused to pay you in cash, even though you saw I had money?" He said, "No, I assumed you had found an investment and you had set that money aside for that. When I refused to give you pillows and blankets and land, I assumed you had pledged all your assets to the temple." That is exactly what has happened. Right? Now, we stretch. Rabbi Akiva is willing to stretch the bounds of credibility to explain the behavior of an employer on Erev Yom Kippur. Rabbi Shimon Schwab, I mentioned it before, saw one of his congregants eating a hot dog from a non-kosher hot dog stand. Rabbi Schwab assumed he must have a life-threatening illness, which required him to eat immediately. Now, is that stretching it too far?
No.
So, if you have someone who you know is committed to eating kosher, so then you would be obligated to stretch the possibilities to justify why he is eating non-kosher food. Actually, in that case, Rabbi Schwab was informed the same congregant was hospitalized and went to visit him. He found out that he was suffering from a bleeding stomach ulcer, and his doctor had instructed him to eat immediately at the onset of symptoms. Now, you wonder if the hot dog didn't cause it, but that's another question. Okay? Right? But there are times, there are situations where a person has to eat immediately. And that happened to have been one of them. Right? So even if we're not talking about a tzaddik, if a person is a tzaddik in that realm, right? So in our common cases, someone comes late. The person usually comes on time. So instead of jumping to conclusions, the stories we tell ourselves, oh, they, right? A person's a tzaddik in that respect, so then we must judge favorably. Pirkei Avot, we mentioned that before, famous quote, Al tadin chavercha ad shetagia le'mikomo. Right? Do not judge another person until you have reached his place. Right? In other words, you can't judge the person. That comes back to what you brought up, Chaya Rivka. Right? The person's actions, as you've experienced them, are certainly something that is not commendable.
No, there's six different things.
Yes. At the same time, we want to try to avoid judging the person, because we never know all that is going on.
Well, just think about
in that person's life.
I know a lot about
the extensive listening that a psychiatrist does to somebody who has a problem. He listens to all facets of the personality and still can't pinpoint what it is.
Yeah.
So who are we to know all the facets of a personality?
Yeah.
People can talk themselves into things.
Yeah.
And people have known to talk themselves into
They
things.
might, right?
Yeah, he's talked himself into he's a doctor, he's a good doctor, he's doing the right thing, but he never did any of the things he said he was going to do, and he charged me this enormous
Again,
amount.
his actions,
terrible.
as you're describing them, his actions are not commendable. But we want to try to do our best, right, not to judge the person.
I tried, but this was a bad experience.
It's, yes, and certainly we do, look, as you mentioned, in our prayers, we mention Adam Ra, Chaver Ra, Pega Ra. We do have such encounters, and we ask God to help shield us from those encounters. Yes, that definitely does happen.
And he's a Jewish doctor. That's what's troubling me, He was
Yep. Number 7.
Yeah. Anyway.
Im ra'ita chavercha sheba lidei nisayon v'nichshal al tadineu lechova ad shetegia lidei nisayon kamohu v'tinatzel. If you see someone else fail a challenge, do not judge him until you have undergone the same challenge and overcome it. This is something that I say often. Right? It's easy to pass everyone else's challenges.
Right.
Your challenges are easy. Mine, on the other hand, now that's a challenge. But yours, what's the big deal? Right? What's the big deal? That's what you stumbled on. Right? But every person is a world in and of themselves.
Right.
And we have our struggles, and they have, and everyone else has their struggles, and we can't judge other people's struggles through the prism of our own understanding. And that's a challenge that we always have. We like to take everything that we see and filter it through our eyes, and I understand that because I once had that, and it's not you. Right? Your eyes, actually, it's very interesting. This when Devora, my daughter, was taking an AP psychology course last year as a 12th grader. So she loved it. She's sharing some very interesting things with me. Right? What color is this?
Navy or blue?
Yeah, blue. It's a royal blue, a navy blue, whatever you want to call it. Right? Now, I see this as being a color that I call royal blue. You see this as a color that you call royal blue.
It's not that royal.
Not royal. Fair enough. Okay? But actually, for all we know, you might be seeing that the way I see this. You might be seeing it in a way that I call brown. And a way that you might see in a way that I call red. And that I call purple. We'll never know. Because how do you describe this? Blue. Right? But we'll never know that we all might be seeing it differently, but we've agreed that we're calling this blue. But you might be seeing it as a brown. And yet it's going to go nicely with, who knows how everyone sees it.
There are color charts.
Yes, but who knows how you see the color chart?
There's pink color charts.
But who knows how a person sees that chart? Right? Recently there was this thing, is it with a pair of sneakers, I think it was, right? Do you see it as pink or do you see it as gray? You guys, that was floating around on the WhatsApp world, right? Right? And people's brains see things differently. We'll never know how someone else sees it. They'll look at that same chart that we're looking at, but their eyes might perceive it completely differently. But they have the same name, so we all get along. Right? And if you run a red light, it's not going to help you. This argument will not help you with the cop. Well, I saw that as green. Right? It's not going to work. Right? Even though, officer, do you know how I see that? It's not going to help. But we don't know. So if something as basic as a color, that we all agree that this is a blue, something as basic as a color, we have no idea how the other person actually sees it. So when it comes to situations, when it comes to feelings, do we think for a moment we understand? We know how someone else is perceiving it? We know what button this might be pushing for the other person? What this might be triggering? We have any idea? We have no idea. And therefore we always need to take that step back and say, I have no idea what's going on in this person's world. And therefore, the actions, as I understand them, are wrong, are harmful, are cheating. And I will need to protect myself and others from that. But the person, we have no idea. A story that I like to tell often, without going into detail. One of the boys that I taught, I was teaching in Israel, so it was a rough and tumble crew that I was teaching in Israel. And a friend of mine came to visit, and so he's hanging out with me. I said, okay, I got to go to the dorm to get the guys, come to the class, right? So he came with me, and some of these guys were kind of intimidating, right? But I knew them; they were a bunch of teddy bears, right? They might look tough, but they're not tough, right? So I was very, very calm and very comfortable, right? And I called this guy tzaddik, and that guy tzaddik, and this guy called him tzaddik, and that guy called him tzaddik. So this friend of mine said to me afterwards, he said, listen, I understand, that you're trying to, work and get these guys closer to Judaism. What's with all that tzaddik stuff? Right? They're not tzaddikim. Right? You can't call this guy a tzaddik. He's not a tzaddik. And I said, let me tell you about one guy in particular. Right? I said, this is a guy who had such a rough go in high school that he's a basketball player, was constantly being kicked off the basketball team because he wasn't going to his Judaic studies classes. Right? And then, right, if he be the first one at davening every morning with his tefillin on, standing in front, leading everyone in davening, then he could play on the team. I said, can you imagine how much animosity this guy has built up towards davening as a result of that, I'd say not well thought out deal that was made with him? Right? I said, for him to come put on his tefillin once a week, once a month, is such a challenge for him that it completely eclipses my wearing tefillin for 5 years. See,